we get a lot in in-game cinematics is, so what do you guys really do to the image besides just videotape the game and ship it? And the truth is, a lot. We'll usually mock things up early in the process, and between then and final frames when they go out, we're spending a lot of time and a lot of effort dialing in, additional atmosphere, additional lighting, dialing up the effects, and really taking the game we know and love and cinematic that people come and expect from a movie. The bold silhouettes, the vignetting, the lighting, but at no point do we ever want to supersede what WoW has already created, because that's where we want to be and that's where we want to live. So just adding a little bit more lights here, a little shadow here, a reflection of the Worgen's eyes in his glasses, really dials that up. And for instance, the rain, it was a clear day, so we had to add in the rain afterwards. But so I'm going to wrap up with that, and we're going to have a Q&A here in just a few minutes, but I'll pass it back to Jeff. Thank you.
So yeah, we're going to open it for Q&A. Before we do that really quick, just to give Taryn a little bit more props, you guys saw the Demon Hunter piece yesterday. He was the director on that, so big hand to Taryn for that one. And then finally, most of our crew really devotes their life to this passion of theirs, and most of them are in this crowd, so if you could just give a big hand to those guys out there, I'd really appreciate that. And then, of course, thank you all for coming out, but we'd love to answer any of the questions you guys have. So let's do it. I think there are mics over here, I believe. So you got to make your way over there if you want to ask a question. And then if there isn't time afterwards, come hunt us down and we could answer questions too.
Hi. Of course, we've had many years of World of Warcraft, but if Blizzard had never come up with the World of Warcraft, of course we would have had Warcraft 4. Now, are there some moments that you would have loved to craft cinematically, like the final battle between Mayo's Shadowsong and Illidan, or the fall of Kael'thas, or the eventual, sundering of the Lich King, Tyrion breaking free of the ice and cracking through Frostmourne? Are there moments you just really would have loved to get your hands on and really just made them sing?
Oh, absolutely. I think the hardest thing for us is to actually pick those moments, because for us it would be great to just tell the entire story. We love telling stories. It's what we do. So it's hard for us to pick those key moments. It just ends up being a collaborative effort with the game team, what they want to show, and what we have the ability to do, because we're limited obviously in time. And we just try to pick those key moments. But yeah, of course there are tons of times that we'd love to, show Arthas and Illidan going at it on, up in Northrend and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, hi. I love your cinematics. I'm also a compositor, and I was wondering if you guys have a dedicated compositing team, because you didn't seem to touch on the, you touched on the effects and stuff, but do you just do that all through, say, Maya or Max or Houdini, or do you have a nuke artist go and assemble everything together? Because it's like,
no, we do have a dedicated lighting and compositing team. If you're curious what software they use, they render in Maya and RenderMan, and then they composite in Nuke. You guys want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, without them, there wouldn't be a cinematic. They're fantastic, and we have, I think it's about 20, 21 people in our lighting compositing team.
It's a big group.
So it's a big group.
Hi. I love your cinematic for the Wrathgate. It was very well done, but one of the questions that I have to ask is, at least as far as I could tell, there was no cinematic for the Battle of Gilneas, and it actually has a very similar feel to the Wrathgate battle. So I'm kind of wondering if there will be a cinematic for the Battle of Gilneas.
You want to hit that, Taryn?
Well, the game team oftentimes asks us to help fill in these moments, like Jeff was saying, that we have to choose wisely, and usually nothing's ruled out as far as coming down the pipe, right? The two cutscenes that we have today are the ones that we're rolling out with, but that doesn't exclude any future moments that we may be able to create should the game team ask us to do that. So.
Hi, in Fall of the Lich King, you added hubs where people could see the cutscene if they hadn't killed Arthas, or go back and watch other cutscenes like Wrathgate. Do you plan on doing anything in Cataclysm where you can go back and watch some of the cutscenes that maybe you didn't kill Deathwing, but you can watch what happened afterwards?
That's a good question.
Really
We'd probably
good
have to ask the WoW devs over there if they're going to hook that up.
I was wondering if you guys could walk us through his path of travel from the beginning of the somatic to the end.
Yeah, I'll field that one. Actually, it's not a literal path of travel. I think if you mapped out just based on what you see in the cinematic, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. We really approached it a little more artistically. That's sort of where the montage part comes in, because we really wanted to show a darkening of the world. We wanted to go from the hot areas, and then as Deathwing flies over, we get progressively darker until by the time we get to Stormwind, we're sort of trying to echo the look of Deepholm from the beginning, where you get a dark sky and a lot of dark shadows and a lot of firelight. So, Darkshore was always going to come after the Barrens, for example, because lighting-wise, that was just an artistic choice that we wanted to make.
I'm Caleb, Alliance from Dark Iron. One of the most fascinating and immersing parts of the game for me is the weather effects, and I'm just wondering how complex the process is as incorporating them into the cinematics.
Was that incorporating weather effects into cinematics? Oh, that's a really good question. Oftentimes in our cinematics we have to do wind, and that itself sounds like no big task, but it actually involves a lot of departments, especially if there are characters in the scene as well. We have to work with our sim group. We have a separate sim group that does cloth and hair, and it's a real big challenge to make sure we're all on the same page, to make sure the hair's blonde. I've been in cinematics where the wind is blowing in one direction, the hair is going the complete opposite way. And of course that has to be fixed. But yeah, it's a big coordination effort.
My question is, you mentioned removing the goblins and Worgen from the Cataclysm cinematic. What I was wondering is, was it an intentional choice to leave like the Barrens Outpost, Darkshore, Stormwind, not having any people there to be affected by his passing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. As I said before, we thought a lot about including the races, and what I really wanted was, if we were going to show races, I wanted them to just look awesome, and I don't want them to have cool stuff to do. What I think we didn't want was to have tiny little sentinels leaping off the dock in Aberdeen, or tiny little orcs spilling out of the Sky Tower. That would have felt kind of like a 70s disaster movie to me, just a little cheesy maybe. So, we felt that by making the cinematic race-free, we were actually making it more accessible and more giving everyone equal ownership of it, because whenever we talk about what races are we going to include, the follow-up question is, well, who are you going to have to exclude? Because, the idea of doing a character vignette for every race, and then on top of that telling the story of Deathwing destroying the planet, we just felt like that was kind of unmanageable. So, but we keep trying to include whatever races we can.
We have enough time for about one or two more questions.
Hi, first I'd like to thank you for coming to SCAD a couple weeks back. My question is, could you go over the shading that you did on Deathwing? Was it procedural? I was looking more at the specular and the bump. And could you talk a little bit more about how you use RenderMan as a shading language?
Okay. Well, we didn't, as far as I know, we didn't use any procedural stuff for Deathwing. We have a actually really talented shader team, which is actually a look development team with us that works pretty integrated with our modeling team. So they can create some really nice shaders that have, whether it's subsurface data, really nice spec bump components, and Based on how we see something far away or up close, we'll adjust those parameters a bit. So all of those things you see in the movies, you know, a spec might be more intense for how a light has to hit it in deep home on an armor, and then in another shot we might dial it down a little bit, these kind of things. And yeah, definitely RenderMan is something we've been using for the last few years now, and I think right now we're really starting to get very strong with the language, and it's one of those things that, you know, I think each cinematic you're going to see even more great stuff about it. If you want to talk a little bit after this, I can give you probably some more specifics, and I'll look for you out here. Okay?
I am also a SCAD student, and I was just curious of how you felt for fluid simulations versus Maya versus RealFlow versus Houdini. And also, I noticed some of your water shots were done Play Blast, and like I didn't know if you comped in some Houdini water and like the simulation for the dam breaking if you did the RBD in Houdini.
Well, the effects team actually uses almost all of those packages you mentioned. We're pretty package agnostic. You know, people quite often, you know, a lot of the shots are unknowns. People say, "Hey, can you make 1,000 orcs run down a hill of snow with their hair on fire?" And we have to figure out a way to do that. In this case, a lot of the fluid sim was actually done on a third-party package called Fume, and then it's actually rendered in RenderMan. But we've used all of those in the past, and we'll probably use anything else that comes down the pike.
That's all the time we have. Let's have a round of applause for our panelists.
It'll come out in a minute.
All right, that wraps up the World of Warcraft Cataclysm Cinematics panel. Wow, stuff they're doing in that game looks absolutely amazing. We've got lots more panels coming up to you guys over the next few days here live.